Have you noticed your electric guitar bass action has changed? It's either too high, you got fret buzz, or maybe your intonation is off and you haven't even touched your guitar in a couple months? Well, don't mess with the bridge until you watch this short video. I will show you what the most likely thing that is causing your problem and how to fix it. Guaranteed. So let's get started. So in order to be very careful, we want to make some very simple assumptions to make sure that we're going to nail what the problem is. The first assumption is that your guitar was intonated and your action set perfect before you stored it away. That's the important thing. I mean, otherwise, you may have changed stuff. You don't know. But you want to make sure that this guitar has been sitting in a closet. It was perfectly tuned, it was perfectly intonated, it was perfectly set for the action that you like, and now it's different. The second assumption is you've done nothing to the guitar. You haven't dropped it, you haven't loaned it to somebody. You want to make sure that the condition that you had when you played it last was exactly a good playing guitar. You also want to make sure that your strings haven't gotten rusted or worn or oxidized. You want to make sure that those strings are in fairly good shape. I mean, they don't have to be perfect, but pretty much the same shape that they were when you stored away your guitar. The other little thing, which is really very rare, is if you don't have, especially if it's been sitting in a closet, is that you don't have any loose hardware on the bridge or surrounding the bridge, or any loose nuts that might have come unglued and could be at an angle. It could be just not perfectly tightened down where it needs to be. These are very rare, especially if it's, like I said, sitting in a closet, but you want to make sure that these things aren't happening. If all those are true, then basically you have put away a perfectly good playing guitar and you come back to it and something's changed and you didn't change anything. So the first instinct that most people want to do is to lower or raise the action so that they can get the action back to where it was. But if you think about it, the little tuning adjustments for individual strings or even the major adjustments on both posts, it's extremely difficult to raise it. And it's a little bit difficult to lower it, especially because you've got all these strings tensioned down on top of it. And so you have a lot of friction. So it's not very likely that it's moved up or down. The other screw, which affects intonation, goes left and right, pretty much towards the nut or towards the saddle. This movement is very difficult too because of all the tension that you've got. Even though it's your first instinct to think that you need to just adjust the bridge, it's not the most likely thing that has occurred. I won't say it's impossible. The bridge hardware, where it might be loose, is slightly more probable. But even that is very difficult to imagine if the thing has been perfectly still and no one has played it or touched it. It should remain the same. So what is the most likely thing that has happened? Well, some, but not all, necks can absorb moisture. And when they absorb moisture, they move. They can bow slightly towards the strings, or they can bow away from the strings and cause the frets to touch the strings and buzz. Depending on where you live, the summers can be very humid. If there's large bodies of water around you and there's a sun beating down, humidity rises in the summer. Air conditioning can help, but oftentimes it still seeps into the house. The humidity just comes in. If it's winter, you basically turn on the heaters, and the heaters will dry out the air. Especially when it's a cold air that's been coming in to the house, it's already low in moisture. So the heater just gets rid of the rest of the moisture. So these are issues that occur summer and winter, which can change the humidity, which can change the neck. It can cause the neck to move forward or backward, which can cause your action to go higher or lower. Now you notice that I said not all guitars or not all necks. It kind of depends on the quality of the neck. And by this I mean is the wood species. For example, if it's made out of maple, or even there's some necks that are completely made out of rosewood. But if you're talking about really, really hard, dense woods, and by dense, they have a number called a Janka rating, and you can look up a chart on the internet, and it shows you all the Janka ratings of all the kinds of different woods. But the ones with the really, really high Janka ratings are the woods that are the stiffest. And the stiffer that they are, that means that the fibers are as close together as possible, and there's little place to trap moisture. And so these tend to be very stable woods. If your guitar is made out of mahogany, for example, mahogany has a looser grain structure. It is a hardwood, so they do make great necks, but they're not as hard as maple, and they're definitely not as hard as rosewood. So the type of wood that you use in your guitar can make a difference into how much moisture it can hold. And the more moisture it can hold, the more it can change in shape. Another thing that happens is when they're manufactured, the dryness of the wood before it's cut has a lot to do with the stability of the wood, because then at that point you put polyurethane or nitro on top of it, and you basically seal the outside of the wood so that you don't get extra moisture coming in. That's a very important thing. This business that wood has to breathe is, you don't want the wood to absorb moisture. You don't want the wood to change shape. So you don't want it to breathe, or you don't want air to infuse its moisture into the surface of the wood. You want to have a perimeter that isolates it. Polyurethane is a plastic. Nitro is a lacquer that does not allow air to pass through. These are important things. This whole business of relicking, you're going to have issues with warpage. Another thing that affects this is the thickness of the neck. Some people prefer, like myself, I prefer a thinner neck. I have smaller hands. Some people just prefer a thinner neck. Thicker necks will have less likely to bend. There's also the construction of the neck that can cause a neck to be very rigid or not very rigid. Some guitars have carbon fiber that are arranged. They're like about 1/8 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch, or around that dimension. And they cut a groove in the neck, and they put maybe 2 or 3 carbon fiber strips. And then the fretboard is across that. And the structure there makes a very good structure to prevent bending. You can laminate. You might see a neck that's beautiful. It's got 2, 3, maybe 5 different species of wood, and they're all cut vertically like that, whereas the fretboard is horizontal. The glue bonds in between there act like rigid structures that will cause the whole neck structure to be very, very rigid and not cause a lot of bending. Quarter sawn wood. Quarter sawn means that the grain is going up and down relative to the thickness of the wood. So if you have a neck that's quarter sawn, then the grain in the wood acts like those structures that prevent the wood from bending in the direction of where the strings would pull it. Another thing is a truss rod. A tight truss rod has less slop. And if your truss rod has a little bit of slop, then the wood can actually move without the truss rod supporting it. So you have a greater probability that your humidity will affect it. So the bottom line is that the most likely thing that has occurred to your guitar is that the moisture has affected the wood and you need to adjust the truss rod. Okay, so how do you adjust the truss rod? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to get a truss rod wrench. Every guitar manufacturer, for whatever reason, picks a different style of truss rod, and they may use an Allen wrench or they may use a socket wrench. They're all different, depending on what guitar you have. You're going to need to find the right one for that guitar. Oftentimes they come when you purchase the guitar in a little bag with other little accessories for your guitar. If you kept that, you're in good shape. You should be able to just use that Allen wrench or a little keyed socket wrench. Whatever came with it should fit. If not, you're going to need to maybe Google around or go into some forums and find out what size, is it like a 5mm Allen wrench or whatever it happens to be. You need to find out what it is. Sometimes you can just go to, say, Amazon and just type in the type of guitar you have and then write the word truss rod, and it may show up because whoever's selling these truss rod adjustment tools knows that people with, you know, this particular guitar make need them because maybe they don't come in the kit or whatever, or they may be a very rare type. And oftentimes the ones that are very rare, they don't even put it in the manufacturers. I've come across some guitars that have had, you know, rare truss rod adjustments. One of them was actually the key for a drummer. It was a square post. I couldn't believe it. And but a key for a drummer doesn't fit because it's got to go this way in the same direction as the truss rod, and there's wood there at the head, so you can't really use a real, but it's similar to it. And the one I had seemed like it was a little worn. Get the right truss rod adjustment. Okay, the first thing that you have to do after you got your truss rod adjustment tool is you need to place the guitar vertically. In other words, so that it's like in playing position. And the reason for this is if you lay it flat on the back of the guitar, then gravity is going to bring down the neck, and you're going to end up with your strings will be slightly more closer to the fret than if you have it sideways. There you have no forces lowering the neck, or the weight of the head lowering the neck. So you want to hold it vertically like this so that the frets are going up and down. Carefully place a capo on the first fret. You want to do this on the first fret, and then you want to place your finger on, say, the high E string, because small strings are a lot easier to see this the height. You want to try to make the neck straight. So you place your finger where the body ends. The frets can still go past this point, but where the body meets the neck that's isolated. And if you put your finger right there, it could be the 20th fret, it could be the 14th fret. It really depends on the guitar. Bottom line is, put your finger there where the neck meets the body, and then place a business card. And it's got to be a regular business card. So I've seen some really fancy, thick business cards that don't work. Typically, a business card is about 10/1000ths of an inch. If you have a feeler gauge set, we'll go with 10/1000ths. Actually, anywhere from 6/1000ths to about 12/1000ths is perfect for this adjustment. And then slip it under the midway point. It might be the 7th fret. It might be, you know, the 10th fret. It all depends, but just look halfway down between the capo and your finger, and then slip the business card there, and make sure that it fits just as snug as a bug in a rug, and you don't have any play, and it's not too tight. And that is where you want to adjust to. Now, before I go any further, I will say that there are some luthiers that adjust the height of a straight neck to where there is no relief. This is called relief, by the way, this gap. And no relief is where the string just kisses the top of the fret when it's under tension and you've had both ends fixed. Now you might say, well, how does this work? I mean, you need some space there to vibrate. Well, remember, we're holding down the fret where the body meets the wood. If you don't have that, then your bridge is usually higher and can be raised higher or lower to compensate and make sure that you don't have any fret buzz when you play the guitar. So that's taking care of that. Where a zero relief is troublesome is when you're trying to adjust it. It's hard to tell when you've just kissed it. It may be too easy to go past that point, and now you have negative relief. And negative relief is not a good thing at all. You always want to maintain either zero or somewhere around 10/1000ths. The reason that 10/1000ths is also better in a way is because when you make it zero, then you have the capability of running into this situation where moisture has affected the neck, and it's more prone to going off because you're so close to a perfectly straight neck. Now, again, luthiers do this usually if they have a lot of confidence in the neck that they're designed, and they know that it's very well sealed, and they know that they've either got it reinforced with carbon or they've made sure that they use a very high density wood and, you know, the cross grain and everything that I've discussed before. If they know that, then they'll do that because they know that this is going to give them the best playable action on the guitar. So it's up to you if you want to do it. Just realize that you may have to do this step of adjusting your truss rod maybe more often, depending on, again, the quality of the wood and the structure in the neck. So a lot of people are very afraid to adjust the truss rod because there have been horror stories literally about people, you know, breaking the truss rod or whatever. Let me just say this. If you are tightening the truss rod, you are going to have a lot of force that you're working against unless you loosen the strings. Because what you're trying to do is when you're tightening the truss rod, that means that you're trying to add some back bow to the neck. As you're doing this, you're pulling and tugging against 6 strings. That's a lot of force. And to try to hold a little tiny Allen wrench or whatever it is, it's going to hurt. You're going to feel that it's going to be some very serious tension. So generally what you want to do is if you're trying to get back bow, what you want to do is loosen your strings. I know it's a pain because you're going to have to tighten them back up to check where the clearance for the release is at. But you want to loosen them. If they're really high, you may want to start with, say, a half a turn, then put the strings back on, tighten them on, and check again for the relief. But after a while, you're going to get the feel for how much you have to turn. You know, just keep putting more back bow until you get that clearance that you want, be it 0 or be it 10 thousandths. Again, this is why I said 0 clearance is really tough, because you don't want to go too far in the negative direction. Then you're not really sure. You know, once you get it up above it, then you can start loosening it, and then you could end up going past it. Now, on the other hand, if you are releasing tension, in other words, you're trying to raise your strings some because humidity's caused the back bow or your string action to come down too far, and you're just releasing, it's usually pretty easy to back off, so you don't need to retune. But of course, if you do pass it, then you're going to have to come back down, and then for that you're going to have to loosen your strings. Now, I'll just say this, that if you have changed your strings recently and you do have back bow, because if you increase the size of the string, you increase the tension, and then that will change the relief of the neck. You will probably want to watch one of the 2 videos at the end. Or if you want to change your action for whatever reason, raise it, lower it, I've got a really good video that talks about how to decide on what kind of action is best for you and your style of playing. And then it walks you into actually changing the action. So those 2 videos will be posted at the end of this video, so stick around and watch those if you want more information. It's very important if you change strings. People don't realize that. Not as important if you're just like doing drop D tuning, things like that. You will affect things, but because it's only 1 string, maybe 2 strings, not that much. If you're permanently going to have one guitar tuned to, say, Gag Dad tuning or whatever tuning you prefer, you may want to do a whole intonation with the tuning that you prefer if you're going to leave that guitar in that tuning. And that'll be, assure you that you got great intonation, great action, exactly what you want. All right, so for a recap, don't assume if you had a great playing guitar in storage that it's going to need bridge work. Don't assume that. Check the neck relief first. It's very important. Other rare culprits may be a broken bridge, broken nut, or somebody came around and messed with your action. Who knows? But those are very unlikely. The most common thing is humidity has affected the relief of the neck. And as always, please hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. And also, if this video has brought you value, please consider hitting the subscribe button so that you'll know the next time I put out another video with tips, mods, all kinds of things related to your guitar to make it more enjoyable, to make it more playable, just things to make your guitar exactly how you want it to be. Consider the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything, and it'll let you know whenever I've got a new video, and I'd appreciate it. And if you really liked it, please share this video with your friends. Let them know what could possibly be wrong with their guitar. I think it's important enough that we need to share this, because a lot of people spend a lot of time doing the wrong things, and it's the thing that makes logical sense. You know, action's too high, hey, adjust the bridge. But it's not always exactly what you first think. So has this storage problem challenged you in the past? Is it challenging you now? Tell us in the comments below and share it with all the others and tell us how your experience turned out. And don't forget to watch the related videos coming next. So, as always, keep playing. See you next time.